시간이 사기기대니 못살아 지레인 자리 지적인 소음 이해나
You must learn the ways of the Force if you're to come with me to Alderaan.
Alderaan? I'm not going to Alderaan. I've got to get home. It's late. I'm in port as it is.
I need your help, Luke. She needs your help. I'm getting too old for this sort of thing.
All right, they can see us, and I think they can hear us. Yep, my meters are going. How's everybody doing? Thanks for joining us
Hello.
out in the YouTube world. We're going to go ahead and get started here. So, without further ado, let's just get right into it. Hello, fellow Galactic listeners. I'm Aaron Julian, and this is WSTR Galactic Public Access, a Star Wars podcast. Welcome to episode 212. We hope you and yours are well, and with everything crazy going on, we want to continue to be a platform that promotes positivity, life, and hope. Today, we are talking to actor and audiobook narrator Dan Bittner, who recently narrated Claudia Grey's novel, Into the Dark. Dan, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Yeah, and thanks for joining us. We've also got Miss Carla Giacalone here. Howdy, Carla.
Hello. Happy Monday, everybody.
Oh, and what a Monday it is. We got a lot of we've got a lot of great show coming up. So, Carla, if you don't mind, let's go ahead and tease that news.
Certainly. All right. I've got 3 on deck. First one is I am one with the Force. Second one is Thrawn. Who dat?
New number. Who's this?
Who dat? And third one, punch it, Chewie.
All right. So get out your decoder rings, figure out what that could possibly mean for the news coming up. In the meantime, it is time for our main topic. All right, Dan, you're on the hot seat. Thanks for being here. We're a Star Wars podcast. We have a bit of a tradition around here, and that is asking all of our guests, how did you first get into Star Wars?
I got into Star Wars from my older brother, who's 4 years older than me. And so he was more into it when I was a kid. And so I wanted to be cool like him. So I started watching the movies. And then I got really, really into it and loved it as a kid and grew up with it. And when I was in, I want to say like junior high or maybe even 6th grade, that's when they released the like HD with the extra footage. And so that was like something that was hyped and, you were looking forward to that. And then shortly after that, when I was in high school, that's when the Phantom Menace rolled out. And so it's kind of a good time to be a Star Wars fan because I got to appreciate the classics and then got this little taste of something new and then a brand new movie series coming out.
Wow, it sounds like a great way to get into it. We were talking before the show. You mentioned kids. Is that something you've passed on to them as well?
Yeah. So my kids I have twins that are 3.5. So I'm kind of just thinking of the time of like, when is it appropriate to be able to watch this? Because I've seen all these like YouTube videos of, parents filming their kids like and just waiting for that moment when you hear, like Luke, I am your father, and then they just pan over to the kids, and the kids are like, what? What? And I was like, when do I get to do that? But it's hard to do that right now because there's so much Star Wars stuff out there. So like when when the kids were born, we got all this great like Star Wars kids stuff and, toys and all that. But we also got all these books that have all these spoilers in them. And I'm just kind of thinking like, I don't want to read these books anymore. I got to throw them away because they're going to know like all of the spoilers and be like, oh, that's Chewie. Oh, there's Han, and they're going to know everybody from the books before they know him from the movies. So it's kind of a tricky time to be a parent in the Star Wars world.
Yeah.
There's so much content.
No kidding.
Yeah.
And it's like we had an episode a few episodes back where we talk about like viewing order. What order do you show Star Wars in? Like that itself is a huge question too.
What did you guys land on? Because I feel like my gut is just saying, the original 4, 5, 6, but like 1, 2, 3, maybe that's like a little better for younger audience, like kids. Maybe they'd like that better. I don't know.
I think I know, like for me, it's always theatrical if like the person has no knowledge of the whole Luke Vader connection. Yeah. But if they have some kind of idea, then you just go chronological, like 1 through 9.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wonder too if like a kid could wrap their head around like, wow, the graphics, like all the CGI is really kind of taking a hit here. Like, and then it just becomes incredible. Yeah. Like all of a sudden it's just the most beautiful high definition. So, oh man, this being a parent's hard. I don't know what to do.
Yeah. Even with entertainment, you can't make the right choice.
Yeah, right? Yeah. It's like always a right way to do it. I'm going to mess it up somehow.
Yeah. Oh, well, you do the best you can.
Yeah, man.
I'm sure you'll make the right call.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah. So you mentioned you were into Star Wars as a kid. How did you? What's the story behind how you got into voice acting? Is that something that you had a young interest in, or is that something kind of more recent?
Yeah, I think I always had I had a strong inkling that I wanted to get into acting, and I think in high school that solidified a little more. And when I was looking at colleges, I've always been a huge cartoon fan, so I think that that was probably my first, thought of like, oh, could I be, an actor? Could I be one of these voices on these cartoons? Like on The Simpsons or something. Those were like the grand plans, but those jobs are like so incredibly hard to get, and especially in New York. I had a little bit of success with it, and for narration in particular, that just kind of fell into my lap in an audition once. And like I was a terrible reader in, high school. I think if you like talk to my English teachers today, they'd be shocked that I could even make my way through a book, let alone like narrate one professionally and get paid to do it. So, I had like an audition, like I would normally get through my agent of, one's a Geico commercial, and all of a sudden here comes an audiobook, and I read like a page of it. And one of them I just booked, and I thought, oh wow, okay, so this is terrifying. I don't know how to do this, and so I kind of cut my teeth on a book by that was like a young adult book, and it was 4 people narrating it. So that was an easy way to kind of get into it because I didn't have the whole book to narrate it. I had an
Mm,
amazing director, Paul Rubin, who's like kind of the Steven Spielberg of directing audiobooks, and so he was a really
not Pee
nice
Wee.
guy to kind of like. Not Pee Wee, it's a different guy. I'm sure he'd be a phenomenal director too, and I would be equally
Yeah,
honored to work with him.
that'd be fun.
If he, I don't know if he's a listener of your podcast, but if he is, I'm just going to put that out there. I will do a book with you, no problem. Any book too, you name it, I'll read it.
Yeah,
Uh, but yeah, so I worked with him, and then I just kind of started getting a couple more books, and then I got more into doing narration.
fantastic.
Awesome. So can you kind of walk us through how you prepare yourself for recording an audiobook, and then, what are the steps, through that recording process?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I will prep a book by reading through it just once and kind of marking it up. When I first started, I'd say like my first, year doing it, everything was on paper still, and it wasn't transferred over to iPads. But iPads just made everything so much easier because you can make these notes, and then you can record, like if you want to record a voice or something like that, you can record it right there in the program, and then you can categorize it however you want it. And so I can look back to it. And that's especially helpful when you have a book like, any of these Star Wars books. But uh, you can go back and look at all of these, 50 voices that you have to remember. And it's easy to do it because before I would basically just write notes, and then the engineer could kind of try to go back and find it and help you out there. But you'd write like ridiculous notes and say, this is like a bad Jack Nicholson accent, but make him British. And, like you try to remember, like, I think I can do that. Okay. Jack Nicholson. Okay. But now it's like, there's no questions asked. So yeah, I'll just read through the book. I'll make notes, any words I have to look up, any questions I have to ask the author, producer, director. And then with books, that have a lot of characters that are, need to be, voiced very specifically, then I'll have those very specifically marked and samples recorded so that I can go back to them.
hmm Now, when you record, do you usually record, is it by chapters, or how do they break that up?
You record like a full day, so whatever, 10 to 5, 9 to 4, and you just go as far as you can.
hmm
And you might hit a mark and say like, that's good because we need 3 days of recording and we've hit a good page number, and we'll go on. And some pages just fly by, and you can just go through it. And other days, you'll say the same sentence like 10 times, and you'll be like, I can't say this sentence, and everything sounds like an alien language at this point, and you just keep messing up over and over again. It's the most frustrating experience in the world. And
Oh man.
or you'll have a
Yeah.
book that's just like really dense and it's real technical, and they'll it's like world building stuff where they're trying to describe all the buttons on the walls, and they've
Yeah.
they've made up every word for everything. So like coughing is a completely different word, and the speech is and you're just like, oh my gosh, I got to figure out like how you pronounce that. And so sometimes it can drag on, but yeah, usually you just go until you kind of keel over for the day, and then stop and start again the next day.
So you mentioned that when you're recording, you're usually going through kind of like a catalog of different characters and different voices. How do you discover, how do you create these voices for these different characters?
Sometimes it's pretty natural. The writer does a great job of kind of just painting the picture for you. And so something just kind of pops out and you just say it. And I think that, everybody, even if you're not a narrator or an actor, like you just kind of have some voices that you go to, maybe like this guy's this cool motorcycle riding guy. And so everything's like, yeah, man, this is me. And so you just have that. And there's some staples that I'll just kind of pull out for almost every book I do because I'm like, yeah, it just kind of fits in that world. I think I can do it well. But then there's other times where you get these characters that are just totally either undescribed, and so you can put whatever spin you want on it, and that can be really fun and also terrifying. But I'll just try to come up with a tone or a pitch of where I want this person, if it's kind of a deep gravelly voice or high pitched voice, and then if it's sci-fi or fantasy, you can play a lot with that. You can just kind of be anything you want. But if you're doing like a true crime drama book, then everything has to be kind of in the realm of just a normal, and maybe like this guy's got a New York accent, or this lady's from Scotland or something. But
Can't get too
um,
campy.
you can't get too
Yeah.
big. Yeah, you can't just be like, hello, I'm this guy, and I'm just here to all of a sudden people are like, what is happening in this story? I thought there was
Yeah.
a triple homicide or something.
Oops.
Yeah. It's like, what do we got? A dead body? And then you're just like, this doesn't seem to fit into the world of, this true
Yeah.
crime.
Maintaining that tone might be tricky
Yeah.
if you're not careful.
Yeah.
Are there any other voice actors that you draw inspiration from?
There's this guy's he's like Mark Thompson or something. I don't know. He's
Think
like
I
one of
heard of
these
him.
guys. Yeah, he's an up and
I think I know
comer. He's
about
an
him.
up and comer. I got high hopes for
He's a
him. I think
mechanic,
he's gonna
right?
Yeah, I think he was, or like he was tinkering around with some stuff, and now he does books. Yeah, I one of the first books I ever did. I have a long list of people that I absolutely love, but especially for our purposes, Mark Thompson is like one of the best there is, and I learned a lot from him. The second book I did was a series of 4 books, and it was a fantasy series, and I was recording it in the studio. Um, with this director Garrett Scott, who is really fantastic, and she's also married to Kevin Thompson, who directs a lot of these Star Wars books. And he was recording with Mark that same kind of day, that same kind of period, and they were recording the I guess you'd call them the original Thrawn trilogy, like the original Thrawn books,
Okay. Yeah.
the 3
Mhm.
of those. He was recording those, and so I went over and he's like, let's just go listen for a little bit. And I remember listening to like 15 minutes of him and being like, this guy's incredible. Like, who's this guy? It's amazing. And I'd listened to those books later on after they were released and just kind of fell in love with those. I thought that's some of the best sci-fi narration out there. And I love that series and I love his work on it. And so I've stolen many, many things from Mark, happily so, and I love his work. And so, yeah, and especially since he's kind of in this world too, I've drawn a lot from him. And there's sometimes when I've just listened to samples of characters that he's already created and established, and I'll go off of him. But yeah, I love him, and of course, I can't think of like other people's names now, but yeah, I love drawing from other people, and I get a lot of inspiration. I'll take something and I'll be like, I love that you were able to create that voice because I couldn't have figured out how you like got the tone. And like for example, when I heard his Han Solo, I thought, oh, that's how you do Han Solo. And then I could do it a lot better, now after I heard how like where he had his tone in his head, and I thought, oh, that's brilliant, he
Mm,
got it, So
gotcha. Um,
Awesome.
you mentioned a voice director. Could you tell us a bit more about the role that a voice director plays in the whole production and how that relates to what you do?
Yeah, well, especially on books like this that have, a lot of weight behind it because there's, the fan base is so strong. There's a lot of world already established. There's a lot of characters that overlap. There's different books going on at the same time. This whole period, for example, of the High Republic, this is all new, but it's all obviously Star Wars. And so a director is so important in a book like this, whereas other times you might get away with not needing one. Here, it was so important to have the guidance and of a director because he'll chime in and help you with pronunciations and characters, already established characters, things like that, locations. But he's also just making sure that you're keeping the ball in the air at the right time so that the story is always engaging, but also helping you if there's ever a time when I'm keeping up the pace too much, or I need to pull it back a little bit. Because sometimes when you're reading these books, you're just you're going and going. It's easy to get caught in a rhythm that is not good and that you need to break out of. You always need to be discovering, and then other times you need to have the action up high, and other times you need to have just that quiet moment between the two people. And so if you're not hitting that, a director can chime in and say, let's take that back and let's do that more with a small conversation in mind or something like that. And that's really helpful when you're recording for 5 or 6 hours a day. There's only so much you can do because I'm inputting the information of the book as well as outputting this performance at the same time. So your brain's like really, really working. And by the end of the day, you can just turn into mush.
Mm.
Yeah.
So it's almost like a fitness coach, just like make sure that you're staying on track with what you need to do.
Sometimes it's literally like a fitness coach or a life coach. It's like, you're doing great, Dan. Hey, don't worry that you messed up 100 times and you can't say that word. It's no problem. Nobody's judging you. You're doing great, buddy.
Oh, that's fantastic. So, Light of the Jedi is a new series. How did you get involved with, from what you were doing to narrating Claudia Gray's novel Into the Dark?
Yeah, that was I'd always wanted to do a Star Wars book of any kind, and this whole series came up without me knowing much about it. And I had been working with Kevin Thompson and as well as with Penguin Random House a lot. And so I was constantly just being like, hey, what's great? Star Wars. Isn't Star Wars great? And anytime I could just like fit it in there, I was just, I had no subtlety about it whatsoever. So I was kind of just mentioning all at once. And then out of nowhere, this guy, Nick, over at Penguin Random House is like, hey, we're going to be doing a lot of these books. So why don't you do just kind of this general audition? We're kind of trying to read a bunch of people because we're going to have a lot of projects coming up. And I said, no problem. And I just spent so much time on this audition, just trying to get it exactly the way I wanted it. Whereas normally I feel pretty confident that I can read through it once, record it and send it off. This time I was like listening back and I'm like, no, that's terrible. It's awful. Like delete it, and go back and try something else. So
Up all night with coffee and cigarettes.
No pressure. No pressure.
Exactly. Yeah. The kids are like, where's Dad? And I'm like, I'll be there in a minute. Just got to get this voice right. I think he's some sort of rock creature golem. I don't know.
Yeah.
So I recorded this audition that I thought was a general audition. And like a week later, he's like, all right, great. We're going to do this book by Claudia Grey. And I was like, squee. And, a couple weeks after that, I was getting the book and I read it and was very excited and ended up recording it here in this luxurious basement studio of mine in my house.
They'll never know.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you've done some interesting voiceover work over your career. A few examples: "The Waste-Free World" by Ron Gonen.
Mhm.
I don't know. Minecraft
Ganen,
Dungeons.
I think. Ganen?
Ganen.
I
Ganen.
think it's Ganen.
Minecraft Dungeons: The Rise of the Arch Illager.
Mhm.
In Her Shadow by Kristen Miller. How does that process compare to working on a Star Wars book? Is it fundamentally the same? Are there any key differences?
Yeah, I think that the baseline's the same, but I'm glad that you brought up like the first book that you brought up, The Waste Free World, is something I did recently. And that's a nonfiction book just about, a circular economy. It has nothing to do with kind of like anything Star Wars, has nothing to do with like that general, audiobook that a lot of people will listen to. But I love being able to do something like that, which is just a lot of information. It's a lot of, just nonfiction kind of getting the information across, but keeping the ball in the air. And that's a different beast than say something like Star Wars, where everything is just, so much character development, plot and story, and you're driving and it's up and down. And I think, obviously I would take Star Wars any day, but it's kind of the fun part about being an actor is that you get to do all these different things. If I was only doing one thing, I'd probably just go crazy. So I approach them differently in that you got to kind of think about like who's listening to it, who's the story, what's the kind of point that you're trying to do here. Are you trying to just give information? Are you trying to kind of engage with your listener? And so I always try to keep that in mind. Like I say, like, what would I like to listen to? Because I love audiobooks. I listen to audiobooks all the time, and um, I'm sometimes in the mood for something just, really informational and interesting. And other times I want to be told a story. I want to be around a campfire just listening to a story. And that's,
Hmm.
the real fun part about it.
Yeah. Do do you run into this is not just for Star Wars, but a lot of your work. Do you run into issues sometimes with kind of creative decision or creative directions that you want to go in versus kind of like what the client wants? Does that differ from project to project?
Yeah, it definitely does differ from project to project. Something like this, like I would bump heads sometimes with Kevin. I'd be like, "No, it's got to be like this. This is gonna be so cool." And he's like, "No, you're wrong. It's got to be, like." And he's got a totally different idea. And at the end of the day, both our ideas are absolutely right. They're not wrong. And so you kind of have to come to an agreement of like, I think that this is the best decision for this moment to play off of the previous moment and to go on to the next moment and come to a conclusion as to what is the best move. Sometimes it can get a little heated, but it's never that bad. I mean, I've never really been in a situation where I'm like, you're making the wrong choice and I'm not going to read it that way. I'm storming out of here.
Yeah.
Like there's been no like big moment like that. The audiobook world it's filled with like really good people. I've worked on a lot of sets in film and TV where you're just like, this is a nightmare and people are mean and like half the
Yeah.
times nobody knows your name and it's but in the audiobook world it's a very inclusive group. The first book I did and the last book I did recently, I've been treated exactly the same, which is with respect, and people are interested in my ideas, and I'm always interested in hearing what a director or producer has to say about what I'm reading.
That sounds fantastic.
Cool. Awesome. Is there anything that you've learned through the process of recording the Star Wars book, whether it's about yourself or just, as a whole?
Yeah. Uh, I mean, I don't know if I've learned so much as I've just kind of like lived a fantasy, because it's just something that was so much fun to be able to get to do. And I was so excited and I really didn't want to ruin it because I know a lot of people take this stuff very seriously. And I was like, I'm not just some guy coming in here and reading this and being like, what is this, Star Trek? I'm a fan too, and I want to
Oof.
do a good job. And I know that people are very critical. And so I tried to spend as much time as I could and take it as seriously as I could and really, really try to hone in on what I thought would be a fun, entertaining story. And Claudia Grey is just an incredible writer, and she writes just these characters that just pop right off the page. So, it makes my job so much easier. There's a lot of books that I've narrated where I have to do a lot of heavy lifting, because maybe it's a great story to read, but to actually say out loud, it turns into a different thing. It's kind of, you're trying to make something work off the page that isn't really working. And with this, it's easy because it's, really well written. The characters are hilarious. For anyone who hasn't read it, I don't want to like say too much, but like the character of Geode and Leox Jossi, like these guys are ridiculous and they're so much fun to read. And so I just got to have a ton of fun. And because it's, such a big production, having these, very keen, watchful ears on it, it made it a lot easier for me because I could just focus on reading, performing, coming up with these guys, and all the technical stuff is left to all these brilliant sound designers and directors to work on.
Awesome. Are there any characters that you would like to voice in the future, or are there any characters that have resonated with you that you've worked on?
I would like to do in the Star Wars world. I always love to do, anybody who's just like a larger than life character, or just like that real heavy stereotype, like Han Solo, or in this book, Leox Jossi, or like old a Jedi master of any kind, like doing a Comac Vitus. It was so much fun just because you get to do these like big voices and it's like, oh, come with me, young Jedi. And it's you kind of mix of like, a Gandalf the wizard and like some, Obi-Wan Kenobi. And so I love doing anything that's really big. Or somebody like Leos Jossi, he's just like a goofball and I'm a goofball. And so I get to just kind of have fun narrating him because he's just kind of a larger than life character.
Very cool. Have you been to any of the Star Wars celebrations or
I have not.
conventions?
I grew up in Alaska, so we did not have a
Oh,
ton
Wow.
of anything. We had a Star
Except
Trek
land.
convention one day, and it was just like, and the thing about it too is because like no conventions or anything come to Alaska, like people went to it dressed as like whatever they could. They were like, I'm gonna wear, like my Star Wars stuff to this Star Trek stuff because I can't, wear it anywhere else. Some people were like showing up in their Doctor Who stuff. Like people were just showing up being like, this is it. We're all
Yeah.
dressing up and we're all going to this.
This will
I don't
never
care
happen
that-
again.
Yeah, this will never happen again. So I'm just coming. So other than that, I'm frequent visitor to the New York Comic Con because I live here in New York, and I'll always try to go as much as I can. So I don't go every year, but I try to go at least, like once every 2 years, and I love it. I would love to, like, if there was ever any kind of like Star Wars panel or like anything that I could be a part of, forget it. I would love that. That'd be awesome.
Mhm.
yeah.
It's like now I get to hang out and just talk about Star Wars for a little bit on a podcast. Yeah, that's fine. I can do that.
Hey, that's not
Yes.
so bad.
That's not so bad.
Celebration
We're
definitely
happy
has
to be your
a-
second best.
Oh man, forget it. Yeah, this is a strong runner-up category.
Yeah.
Yeah, Celebration is definitely like, I mean, you have New York Comic Con, so like like the whole atmosphere, like that
Yeah.
feel, but like just code it just Star Wars. And
It's all just
I
Star
always say it's like a big family reunion amongst all the fans and just the groups that attend. And yeah, it's a lot of fun.
Well, it's so cool and to be a part of it too, because it is just like a good group of people. Like everybody is there just to like love this one thing, and that's why going to Comic-Con is so fun. It's like you can be into comics, you can be into video games or cartoons or whatever, and everybody kind of gets together and just like geek out together, and I love it. I'm all for it.
Yeah. Fingers crossed we get
Yeah, right.
something this year.
At this point, I will go to any convention for anything. Literally, it's like if there's like just boats and trailer hitches for boats, I'll be there. I'll be like, this is great. Sure.
National
Yeah.
Bee Convention.
Yeah, I'll be like, well, this
go.
is very nice. This is a nice convention of bees.
So
What?
Go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say. So, what is your favorite part about Star Wars, or one of your favorite parts about Star Wars?
Oh man, I mean, I guess I love that it has this long history with everybody. Like everybody's has kind of their love of Star Wars, and it's now become such this big entity. It's no longer this thing that a small group of people get together to talk about. I mean, it has its reaches in everything. In pop culture, especially today, where now we're releasing TV shows and comics and new book series all the time, and I love it. I'm all for it. It's like you have your 4, 5, and 6 that so many people grew up with and loved, and if you only want that and that's your Star Wars experience, then just live with that, and that's great, and you can have that. But if you want to just kind of go to every reach or to every corner of this galaxy, then you can do that too, and you can explore all of these different mediums, and it's great, and it still holds up. I mean, it's still as exciting and popular today as it was back then. So it has this this kind of magic to it that has obviously stood the test of time.
Yeah, for sure.
So outside of the kind of audiobook world, you're also an actor first and foremost.
Yeah.
So can you speak to kind of the differences and similarities between, acting for an audiobook and acting for film or TV?
Yeah, I mean, there's a ton of differences, and the thing that like strikes me with audiobooks that's very different and very rewarding is that when I audition for anything in film, TV, or theater, I have to fit into a very small category, very small box of like, okay, I am a white male, age 30 to 40, kind of in this world. I'm this tall. I look like this. And so those are the parts that I can play, and I can kind of branch out a little bit left and right of that. But for the most part, I'm kind of in that world because that's what you see. You see me, you make a judgment of it, and then I have to fit into that character. But with audiobooks, I mean, I could play somebody that's 8 years old or 100 years old. You can play a
Mm,
bad guy or a good guy, and I can do nonfiction and science fiction and young adult romance, whatever it is. And that's great. I love that because I am a person that just kind of loves to play around in all of it. And I think I said it's before, but I just don't want to ever stick to one thing because then you just kind of get bored of it, I think. And one of the reasons I wanted to be an actor is because I just, I'm a person that just can't do one thing. I always want to be trying out a million different things, and otherwise, my brain just kind of shuts off. So when I'm doing anything for film or TV, the camera is really the thing that you're playing to, as well as the person that you're acting with, and it's so much more of a producer director's world. And on stage, you then jump to a completely different medium, and that's the presentation of your performance to an audience, and you have to change your vocal quality, and there's a lot of rules to follow there, and that becomes a lot more of the actor's world. But I think theater and audiobooks really lend themselves to be much more of an actor's domain, and so they're really, really fun for an actor to play in.
mm. And something I've thought about in relation to that is how the experience, kind of the other side of it, the experience of listening to an audiobook, it's so much different than watching a show or watching a movie, in that when you're watching a movie or TV show or whatever, it's something external to you and it's something that you witness. And so it's easy to be able to share that with other people and talk about it. Whereas an audiobook, it's something that you experience internally. And it's something that kind of pulls on your imagination to experience the entire story. And so that's something, it's unique and different to other mediums that you're not going to get otherwhere,
Yeah,
elsewhere.
that's
Um,
oh, sorry. Yeah, no, that's a fantastic point because audiobooks really do, engage your imagination in your imagination, and you have to kind of create this world that's being described to you. And so you and I are going to just, we're going to react to this book completely differently because we're
mhm,
like, oh, I see this world as darker, and you see this world as mountainous, or this guy seems tall and gruff, but I think maybe no, he's got a heart of gold, and there's a lot left for you to fill in, which is great.
mhm.
It's very rewarding. I love it. I mean, I
Yeah,
think
it's like
that's why.
participatory.
Yeah,
Mhm.
absolutely. Whereas it's much more of a presentation when you have anything on TV or film, or even on stage. And it's much more intimate. And I think it's like, at its best, theater can accomplish that too, because theater does rely on imagination a lot. Because obviously, you're just there on the stage. You can't do as much as you can do in a TV show or a movie. And it's this kind of like intimate experience with the audience and the actor because you're all there in that room together. And that's when that hits right. I mean, that is just the most incredible experience that you can have as an actor
Mm.
and as an audience member. Some of the most memorable moments of my life has been just in the audience of a play or a musical.
Yeah, and maybe I'm missing a important piece here, but what having that kind of experience, it's hard to share that with other people. Like, it's hard for even if I and another person have listened to the same audiobook, it's hard to have those kinds of conversations like, "Oh, do you remember that part when they did this?" Or, "Did you see that
Yeah,
when" it's hard to have that kind of shared language to discuss these things because it is such an internal, experience. And I
absolutely. Yeah, I
and
think that's
and I
very
wonder
well
why
said.
it's I wonder if that's one of the reasons why um why I think these High Republic books aren't being talked about enough or talked about more than they could be,
Yeah.
because it is kinda hard to share that experience with others. Am I making sense
Yeah.
here?
Mhm.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And it's a huge chunk of story. It's like you're listening to these stories for 10, 15, 20 hours. And so to kind of whittle it down to one moment, I mean, maybe somebody as they're listening kind of just, wasn't 100% paying attention to that, or your mind just drifts off a little bit. And that happens all the time, when I'm listening to an audiobook and I'm like, wait, what? Maybe I missed this moment and stuff like that. So sometimes you might miss or not get the complete story, but I think you're right. You do just experience it completely differently than somebody else. It's this huge, big, massive story, and you're taking what you really love and you're really leaning into those moments, and somebody else might not. I think it's also why people really latch on to certain narrators that they like because
Mm.
it just kind of fits into, their likes of what they are looking for in a storyteller. And I feel like they go back to those people again and again because they're like, yeah, this person can really hit what I really am looking for in a storyteller.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and it's also experiencing an audiobook. It's kind of like the newest version of probably our oldest storytelling form,
Yeah.
where it's just
Yeah.
someone telling you a story out loud. And I don't know if culturally we're in a place where we're really comfortable with experiencing that and are good at paying attention to that. And maybe it's something that we need to rediscover. And maybe this whole audiobook thing is part of that.
Yeah, because
But
audiobooks have been around for a long time, but we are listening to a lot more now than we ever have, and they're like putting a lot more emphasis on them. I mean, they'll get
yeah.
bigger names, they get they have the equal releases, whereas before it was like, well, audiobooks are kind of a secondary thing to the release of a book, and now people are focusing equally on the audiobook as they are on the actual printed version of the book. So I think it's also just new, you know.
Hmm.
Hmm. I think too, we're so used to having all of this, the visual stuff, right? The movies, the TV, and I'm gonna nerd out a little bit here with my cognitive psychology, but most people are very visual learners, like they soak in information visually, whereas like your auditory memory and your working memory and how you take that all in, it requires, a little bit more of your attention and your focus. You can't really be doing much else if you really want to hone in and listen in to what the story, like the story and the characters, and really get those nitty gritty details. um I know, like, when I listen to Light of the Jedi, like, I'm usually working my embroidery because it doesn't require that much more, um, you know, mental mental load, I guess is the right term. But yeah, I think we're so used to seeing um visually, the story being told in front of us, whereas that audio, the auditory is, you know, asking more of our brains, and it requires a little bit more attention
Yeah, you're
to
right.
get everything.
It requires more of the listener, and you have to
Mhm.
and there's times when I'll listen to an audiobook and I can do things. I can, wash the dishes and I can walk around the house taking care of chores. And then there's other times when I'm like, wait, I gotta stop because something big's going on and I really
Yeah.
need to kind of dedicate. Otherwise, I'm gonna miss a lot of what's happening here. And you have to literally stop and be like, let me sit down and listen to this. And maybe not that's not for everybody, but I think it's just a medium that needs a little bit more time to find an even bigger audience because it just seems to be growing every year.
Hmm.
Yeah, and I think it's also missing that kind of communal element to it where um people used to gather around the radio set at night and to listen to radio dramas or just like the news or some speaker or musical performance on the radio, and then TV kind of took the place of that, and even that's kind of going away right now where we don't really have a we don't have like a cultural tradition beyond behind just like gathering around to experience the same kind of art together. And so I don't know what that will look like or what the solution to that is, but it's something to
Yeah.
think about. We don't just like gather around and put an audiobook on for
Hmm.
Yeah.
everybody to listen to.
But
So
podcasts, like podcasts, people even that are so into that, they don't listen to it with other people, that even
yeah.
if it's just a 30-minute,
Right.
popular podcast, people don't listen to those in groups. They usually are like taking care of that by themselves. They're on their commute or whatever. And then they might talk about it and be like, oh, did you listen last night? So yeah, it's interesting. Never thought about it before.
Yeah, and I guess in a small way, we're doing that with this podcast and our live stream and trying to involve others in listening it together, even though they're separate. And I guess that's the whole
Yeah.
conundrum of 2020 is
Yeah, right.
participating in
Yeah.
things together, even though we're separate. So I'd be interested to see what that looks like whenever anybody figures it out.
Yeah.
So, all right. So, what are some of the roles that you've played that you are most proud of that you would put on your fridge for mom to see?
um, I've done a lot of fun parts, and this was one of the best. narration jobs I've had with the Into the Dark. I really, really love that one. Um, but it was like film and TV. I did a movie called Adventureland that was one of those jobs that like everything was just, working perfectly and singing together. And it
Mm.
was a movie like Jesse Eisenberg and Kristen Stewart, Ryan Reynolds. There's all these like amazing people that I was huge fans of. And I got to be a part of this like very John Hughes-esque movie by Greg Mottola, who directed Superbad. And so I
Mm.
spent like 5 weeks in um, Pittsburgh filming this movie, and it was just like the best experience because everyone was really nice. The movie was hilarious. It was, one of the better jobs I've ever had.
Oh,
So
wow.
something like that, I just love doing, and I still think about that movie, and I still think about the people, and um, I was very, very lucky to be a part of that. And then I've gotten to work with amazing people, but just in small roles, and it's just been fun to be in the room. So it's not a part that I'm like, wow, I really, cracked the egg of acting on that one. I really knew what I was doing. It's just small part. I say a couple of lines or whatever, but I've done movies with Steven Spielberg and Martin Scorsese, so I could just be in the room and I could say like, I work with that guy, and it's like, oh, what direction did he give you? It's like, oh, he didn't even look at me. He didn't even talk to me. It was the assistant director really was the
I
one
was a
talking to me.
prop.
Yeah, yeah, I was basically a prop. Are you familiar with stationary objects? No. Um, so I've gotten to do like these amazing things, but some jobs you think are going to be amazing and they don't turn out to be, and other small little jobs turn out to be just a ton of fun. So
Mm.
those would be the ones that I remember the most, though.
Awesome.
Cool. So speaking of some of your roles, you're credited as a stormtrooper on the producers. Can you elaborate?
This was my first ever movie, maybe my first ever like on camera job. I was,
Wow.
I want to say like I might have been like a senior in college or just thereabouts, but I like answered an open call for the producer's movie, the movie musical, which they, remade, they made the movie of the successful Broadway show with Nathan Lane and Matthew Broderick. And they were looking for stormtroopers, not the Star Wars stormtroopers, but the Nazi stormtroopers, which I do believe
Oops.
they were based on. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I showed up in
Yeah.
my full Star Wars
Yeah.
stormtrooper outfit. No, but I went there and they were like, we are looking for dancers who are, look German and are 6 foot on the dot. Do not come in if you're 5'11. Do not come in if you're 6'1. And I said, I don't know how to dance that well, but I'm 6 foot and I look very much German. I was like,
Yeah.
let's go. And so me and a couple buddies, we go down to this call down in one of these big areas where they'll do a lot of big auditions. And I went in there and everybody was like stretching and like, getting ready to dance. And everybody like looked incredible. And I was like, oh man, this is a bad place. We're not supposed to be here. We're gonna get found out. Like we were just spies in this midst of like real, actual dancers, and
Yeah.
we had no credits to our name. So I went in there to audition for this thing, and they only required you to do like light, like goose stepping and like a turn and stuff. And so I was like, okay, I can do this. I can do this. And slowly they just start whittling people away. But they needed like, 80 of these stormtroopers for the movie because they were doing this big, huge dance number. And I just slowly, they brought everybody up to this piece of tape on the wall and they stood you in front of it and they're like, 6 foot. Yeah, you're 6 foot. Okay, get back in the other line. And anybody who was just like a hair short or a hair tall, they just are like, thank you. We'll see you later. Cut. And so I made the cut and then ended up filming for a couple of days on the set, which was just like a kind of a really cool experience. But I was not a dancer, and I'm not a dancer today. And I somehow managed to fool a lot of people, and I've been continuing to fool people ever since.
You perfected the Jedi
That's
mind
good.
trick.
Yeah.
Just like I have no business reading a book, but here I am.
Yeah. Fake it till you make it.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Um, Going a little off script here. What do you hope? What do you hope that someone who in- experiences your work is able to take away from it, whether it's acting or narration, voice acting work? What do you hope other people experience from what you have to offer?
Well, I never take myself too seriously, so I hope that anybody listening to any book I narrate just enjoys the ride. I want to entertain first and foremost, and have something that people look forward to listening to. I hope it's not too heavy. I hope it's not too over the top. Um, I love to just, be a goofball, and I get to have a lot of fun reading these books. And I hope that people just kind of end the book being like, that was a lot of fun. This is something that I, could recommend to somebody else. And um, I always love listening to other friends and narrators, and I always am in awe of their talent. And so I hope that I can fit into that world the same way with somebody else listening to it.
That's fantastic. Are there any exciting projects that you can share that you're working on right now? No pesky
I did,
NDAs?
I do have an NDA for a relevant situation I can't talk about. I'm
Okay.
excited about, but
Okay.
uh, other than that, like everything that I've been doing with the COVID, everything going on is all voiceover. So I haven't been doing any film or TV that I could talk to you about. Um, unless Evil wants to bring me back on CBS. Evil, anybody listening? My character's not dead. You can bring me back. But other than that, just like a lot of fun books that are coming out. I'm currently recording a book with Audible. I don't know how much I can talk about it, but it's a radio drama kind of, like big production thing with a bunch of different people, and we get to record with other actors, which is so much fun, especially right
Oh,
now,
awesome.
because and it's like all like set in like we all like are like army grunts and mercenaries and stuff. So it's like really fun to play these kind of gritty characters. And
Yeah.
so we're kind of in the middle of recording that right now. So there's a lot of fun projects that I get to do. And I love doing that because I get to actually work with other actors. And right now it's like I'm so desperate to do that. I said to my agent that I was talking to the other week, I was like, as soon as things open up, it's like I'll do a high school musical in Delaware or something. It's like I'll do anything. I'm just so desperate to like work with other actors because I'm very bored with being by myself and acting.
Yeah. No kidding.
So Dan, we've been asking all of our guests that we've had on our show, where do you find hope during these difficult times?
Oh man. Yeah. Well, the first thing is I think too many people are saying like, we all got to just cheer up and it'll be great. It's like we're going through an incredibly difficult time and it's just terrible. It's all terrible out there. But, I always still love being able to connect with my friends, and, we'll play video games, we'll goof off on Zoom and play board games, through that. And I think that just really grounds me as a person. It just kind of brings back nothing but good memories, and we'll, goof off and giggle and have a lot of fun doing stuff like that. And that always just kind of makes me forget about, all this going on. And, my family is obviously the most important thing to me. And so I have 2 little kids and my wife, and, we're going through all this together, and I'm very fortunate to have that. It's challenge to be a parent, but they also give me a lot to be hopeful for.
That's a good thing to strive for.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you, Dan, so much for joining us for this episode. YouTube audience, we're going to go ahead and take a little break here, send Dan on his way, and we will be back momentarily. So please don't go anywhere.
Jedi named the Galley. Jedi named the Galley. Jedi named the Galley. Jedi named the Galley.
And we're back. Thanks, YouTube, for your patience. We're going to go ahead and pick up here with paying some bills. All right, stick around with us as we pay some bills. You can find all of us on the socials: Heather at Hawk Awesome, Carla at Carla Marie Giac, Todd at Tizod, myself at Aaron Julian, and we are also part of the Red 5 Network, Red numeral 5 Network. You can email us at mailbox@wstrmedia.com. That's you can also leave us a voicemail at 630-557-WSTR. That's 630-557-9787. Leave us a voicemail. We'll play it on an upcoming episode of the show. Our entire back catalog of episodes and all relevant links can be found at podcast.wstrmedia.com. We are brought to you by Audible, audibletrial.com/WSTR. Get your free 30-day trial. That's a free audiobook of your choice and 2 free Audible originals. Might as well pick up Into the Dark while you're at it. Hear our boy Dan, loud and clear, doing some great work on some great Star Wars story. That's audibletrial.com/WSTR to get your free book today. We are also brought to you by our merch store, store.wstrmedia.com. You can cover you or your loved ones head to toe in WSTR merch. Show a little love for your favorite Star Wars podcast. We are also on Patreon, patreon.com/WSTRmedia, which is brought to you by our current patrons, Jeremy Myers, Scarif Scuttlebutt, Elena Strikes, and Nicholas Schaefer. You can check us out there for exclusive content you can't get anywhere else, including Heather's Holocron, Carla's Costuming Corner, and Starside Chat with myself and JD. So check it out, patreon.com/WSTRmedia for further details. All right, bills are paid. Carla, it's another Monday. You know what that means.
Time to take out the trash.
Twitter trash compactor. Hold your nose, it's trash day.
It stinks. Let's see, what do we got? Just one trash bag. So we have Paul here from last week talking with Brad and Lisa, who are from the Comic Book Couples Counseling podcast. Say that 5 times fast. Woof. They were talking about the WandaVision series. So stepped away from Star Wars for a bit, going into the Marvel universe. And we asked, what is your favorite WandaVision episode? Comments are welcomed.
Okay.
And our 4 choices were Now in Color, the series finale, all new Halloween spook. I think that's Spooktacular. I don't remember
It
the
can't
exact
be anything
name.
else.
It cut off.
It's got to be.
And Breaking the Fourth Wall. So those are our 4 choices because that's all we're allowed. And Conversations, aka Red 6, they wrote in and said episode 8 and 9 as a unit.
Ooh.
As with the first 2 episodes, we think the last 2 could have benefited from being released at the same time / combined into one.
Hmm.
Then just taking a look at the results. So we had one that was our only write-in. But it looks like most people are saying the Halloween Spooktacular episode
Yeah.
at
Got half the vote.
50%. And then split at 25% was series finale and breaking the fourth wall. And Now in Color got none.
Ooh, no love.
Nada. Yeah. I'm trying to like remember each of these now.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean the Halloween one, obviously, that was when her and Vision, like, they threw it back to the, you know, the old costumes and
Yeah.
everything, which is cool. I enjoyed that one. I kind of liked the first 3 because I really like how they went back to, I mean, it plays into the story, obviously, with Wanda's character and all that.
Mm-hmm.
But I like how they went back to, you know, like the I Love Lucy honeymooners,
Yeah.
that it was Bewitched and then the Brady Bunch, like with the 70s and all that. I don't know. I thought that was cool, being that my family, you know, my parents exposed me to those shows when I was younger, and I still watch them now. So I was like,
Yeah.
oh, I get it. I see what they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Well, I have no vote to cast, unfortunately, because I have not seen WandaVision. But
You haven't watched any of it yet?
no, I've had no time.
Oh.
With what time would I have watched these, Carla?
They're only like, I think some of them are only about 25 minutes.
Yeah.
So they're not super long, but
I gotta find time somewhere.
I feel you. I feel you. March is a crazy month.
It is.
But when you get the chance, definitely check it out. It's again, I am very surface level Marvel fan. But it wasn't what I expected it to be, so I am enjoying it very much. Yeah.
Yeah, I've heard it's pretty good, so I'll have to find an afternoon somewhere and just blitz through it.
All right. We're done with the trash. The stank is out.
All right. And with that, I think it's time for our news of the week.
All right. So now we're going back to our teasers. First one here. This comes from screenrant.com. And apparently there is a connection between Rogue One and the High Republic. Ooh. So this has to do with the comic book series. I don't know too much about it, but they're saying that one of the characters is, you know, I guess throughout the story, chants or utters a mantra that we've heard before, from Chirrut Imwe. I'm one the Force, and the Force is with me. And people are probably wondering, whoa, wait a minute, where does this come from? Because Chirrut said it, you know, had a connection with the Guardians of the Wills, and even though we're not too sure what that's all about, still, you know, the High Republic being, you know, 200-300 years prior to Rogue One and that era. It talks about the character Keith Trennis. So I'm assuming she's a Jedi. Yes. And what it says here is that it's usually reserved as an ancient prayer for members of the religious order known as the Guardians of the Wills. But it's connected to Rogue One, despite being set centuries before the Guardians of the Wills ever existed. And the Guardians of the Wills having been formed only a few years before the events of Episode 1, Phantom Menace. So the Guardians, they, it's their duty to kind of preach and bring the message of the Jedi throughout the galaxy so that, they're not forgotten. And so it kind of makes us question, where did this begin? Where did this fall into place? Right.
Right.
And let's see. So the character Kiev, she uses the mantra as kind of like a default line. So it's like drilled into their brains, basically, during their training. And I guess at one point in the comic, she goes so far to kind of mock or make fun of it. The line being, "The Force is with me. I am one with the Force, blah, blah, blah."
Yeah.
But she does
like
confirm
a Hare Krishna
that,
or something.
Right, yeah. But she does confirm that the prayer, this mantra, is a staple of her life and, her upbringing and her beliefs. But it's also kind of like ugh, yeah. Like it's, so yeah, it seems like there's some kind of connection there. They're weaving a lot of things together. Even though there's, a big separation in time and, a lot of things happen in between the High Republic and the prequels and Rogue One. And so it's pretty cool. They're connecting those little dots here and there.
Right.
But yeah,
that's pretty cool.
Tidbit.
Gives a bit more tradition to what might have otherwise been a kind of throwaway phrase.
So yeah, that's all for that one. Next on the news list, why won't this Marvel icon play Star Wars Grand Admiral Thrawn? Coming from techradar.com.
Oh my God.
So if y'all haven't heard the buzz, chances are we're getting a live action Thrawn, possibly in the Ahsoka series. Who knows? Most likely. So since, the mention of his name in The Mandalorian, from Ahsoka, where is Grand Admiral Thrawn, everybody's heads have been just like, who's going to play him?
Yeah.
So we've, there's been quite a list of names thrown out there. One of them being Mr. Benedict Cumberbatch as one of the top picks, top choices. But, however, in a recent interview, speaking to Collider about the possibility of playing the Chiss Admiral, he revealed that he would not be interested in taking the role for two reasons. First one being, and I quote, that's a straight no from me right now. There's no way I want to be turned blue. I turned the air blue very recently. I guess he must be laughing during this. He says, no, seriously. I have precious time with my children, and I think sitting in a makeup chair and being painted blue and the amount of time it would take to do that and then take it off at the end of the day might just, it's not the right time in my life for that. So he doesn't want to be blue. Dabba dee, dabba die. I'm sorry, I had to do that.
I was waiting for it.
I had to do it.
It had to be done.
Yes. And where's reason number 2? Unless was all in one? I don't know.
Yeah, he wants to spend time with his kids, not in a makeup chair.
I mean, I can kind of understand that. I know Paul Bettany, from doing all the makeup with Vision and everything, when he was cast as Dryden Voss for Solo, originally he was supposed to be painted up some different color. And he was
Mhm.
like, nah, like I've been doing that way too much. Just
Yeah.
do something else. And I guess that's why they
I'm
opted
just a
for the
guy.
yeah. So I guess why they opted just for the like facial scars, which turned out cool. But
Yeah.
it's I mean, I could see that. It's probably it probably gets annoying, after a while, especially if you have to
Yeah.
do it so many times.
I think they're just gonna get Lars Mikkelsen to do it.
You think so?
Yeah. He looks close enough like him. Just paint him up blue. Give him a nice haircut. He'll look like it.
As much as I love Benedict Cumberbatch, he was not my first choice.
Who's your first choice? First one?
So
I can't talk. Good thing I'm on a podcast.
So when like this whole idea of, live action Thrawn, the first person I thought of immediately was Michael Fassbender. And I don't know why. Like just his facial structure and I don't know, his mannerisms and some of the other roles that he's played. I just feel like, I don't know.
Yeah, he would be a good fit.
Yeah. Benedict's, I could see it, but I don't know. I feel like there are others that could probably nail the role a bit more down pat. I mean, and you gotta have that voice. I mean, Mark Thompson set the bar very high.
Yeah.
So.
Yep.
And Lars Mikkelsen too. But yeah, I don't know. It'll be interesting to see. So he'll play a gold loving dragon, but he doesn't want to be blue. So
what are you gonna do?
Yeah. And finally, our last news item here from WHBL.com. There's light speed travel in Star Wars and Star Trek. Is it possible? Science. Oh my gosh. This one, I don't know. This is like so it looks like here a bunch of physicists have been doing a bunch of research using conventional physics rather than, oh my gosh, this is already like too much jargon for me. Rather than using a construct based upon hypothetical particles and states of matter with exotic physical properties. Whoa.
Oh my God.
Okay, so let's break this down here. Can we travel in light speed or not?
Yeah. Here, using traditional rocket fuel, it would take about 50,000 to 70,000 years to reach Proxima Centauri, which is just over 4 light years away. And nuclear propulsion with proposed technology would get there in about 100 years. A light speed trip would take about 4 years and 3 months. So, I guess they've got blueprints for above light speed travel, which holds the potential for a one-way and round-trip distant interstellar travel within a human lifetime. If we're limited to traveling at sublight speed, then multi-generational spaceships must be used for destinations beyond the nearest stars, which is basically a glorified burial casket for at least the first generation of people. I do not find that prospect nearly as inspiring. So this guy, his paper describes the theoretical construction of a class of soliton, which is a compact, self-sustaining wave moving with constant velocity through space, capable of superluminal motion, which is faster than light travel. These solitons are often referred to as warp bubbles, and they would provide the basis for a propulsion system. Okay, so the whole idea is that we need like way too much energy, way too much energy in order to move close to the speed of light. So if you could kind of solve the problem of moving close to or above the speed of light without needing all that energy, if you could reduce that amount of energy, then it's theoretically possible. And this soliton seems to be the way to go. A lot of work would be needed to bring this to fruition. Making it practical would require lowering the energy needs drastically down to the range of modern nuclear fission reactors. A way to create and accelerate the solitons also must be devised. So he says it's difficult but not impossible. The next phase of theoretical research and development work could unfold over the next several years, with a fully functional prototype drive possible within the coming decade. That's a
Wow.
bold promise, Mr. Lentz.
This all sounds A, very dangerous,
Mhm.
and B, very expensive.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah.
So it'll probably be a while before we can go to a galaxy far, far away. Until then, we've got the hotel at at Walt Disney World.
Yeah, right.
I think we'll be okay with that.
Cool stuff. And yeah, that's about it for the news.
That's our news of the week.
Yeah.
With that, I think it's time for Cantina Chat. All right, welcome to the part of the show where we talk about all things geeky and weird in our lives. Carla, what have you been up to?
Ooh. Well, work has just been March is not fun for me with work.
Yeah.
There was no breaks. So it's pretty much go until spring break.
Oh man.
But yeah, to keep myself sane, I just finished the Light of the Jedi audiobook, which was excellent. I loved it. So now I gotta start into the darkness. So I'm excited about that. But I also restarted listening to the Alphabet Squadron, the second one, Shadow Wing or Shadowfall. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I gotta be honest, I'm not really into that trilogy series. I don't know. It just kind of falls flat for me. Not because of the narration or anything. It's, I think, just like the whole like fighter pilots thing, it doesn't grab me as much as the whole like Jedi and the Nihil, if you've listened,
right,
or read it. Yeah, I don't know, but I'm a completionist. I'm like, I have to read all the books and I have to listen to all of them so I know what's going on.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of just, kind of like I was saying before, like my auditory attention is elsewhere usually when I'm listening to those.
Yeah. Okay. Have you ever had it where you're like listening to an audiobook and like your attention fades for a while and you're like, oh, what? You go back like 60 seconds or whatever. And then like right where they get to the part where your attention fades again.
Yeah.
And you're like, I gotta go back.
Huh. I wonder if there's something to that.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I haven't figured that out because it happens to me all the time. But when you figure that out, let me know.
Yeah. So I've got that. And then I picked up the Silmarillion again.
Ooh.
I'm slowly working on that one.
Yeah.
I try to break it up like into a chapter every time I pick it up, because if I try to just be like, yeah, I'm gonna read as much as I can, I'm like, oh gosh, no. Even some of the chapters I have to split in half because there's so much.
It just ain't no way.
Yeah, but I did. I treated myself to a birthday gift. While we're on the topic of Lord of the Rings, I bought. It's like a set of the history of Middle Earth, and it's 12 volumes. But it's printed in these really like nice hardcover books. And the pages are like, it's like Bible pages.
Oh wow.
They're so, and I'm almost like, oh my gosh, I don't want to
super
touch them.
thin.
Like they're so nice. So like when they arrived, when they came to my house, I opened it, I was like, oh, the holy books have arrived. I was like, they're here.
Yeah.
But yeah, super nice books. So that's probably just like a kind of like pick up and I'll look through it. I'm not gonna like sit there and probably read through the whole thing, but
right.
I was excited about that.
Awesome.
Yeah. And while still being on the topic of Tolkien, my boyfriend and I, we did a rewatch of The Hobbit, the first Hobbit, and the second one.
Hmm.
So now we got to watch Battle of the Five Armies. And every time I watch them, I'm like, oh, yeah, this is why I didn't like marathon these 50 million times in my
Yeah.
they've been out. But yeah,
Someone will make a fan edit that's just The Hobbit.
yeah. What it should have been.
Yeah.
And then just plugging along with this embroidery. I'm still on my first panel, but I see the light. So
Oh, good.
I'm at the bottom section, which I think will hopefully go a lot quicker than what I've been working on now is like the scale shapes.
Right.
And there's just so many. So it's very tedious and time consuming. But once I've got the first one down, I think like I'll just be go for the next 4.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Excellent.
What about you? What you been up to?
Well, since you asked, yeah, I was out last week because super busy. The radio station I work at, they were having their biannual, semi-annual, whichever one's twice a year, fundraiser. It's a nonprofit, so they need to raise money for their operational costs. And it was a hoot. It was a success. We raised like 93% of our goal, which was like
Nice.
4.6 out of 5 million, something like that.
Wow. Awesome.
Yeah, which is fantastic. But uh it was spring break, so I had no classes. But I also had to be at work at 4:30 in the morning all week. Um
Oof.
yeah, and at the same time we were getting a bunch of equipment for the music studio install that I'm doing for my school. So I basically get off work and then head on over and start installing a bunch of stuff and running cable and all sorts of nasty things. And then I was also trying to get some certifications done for work for a job application that I was putting together. And I got 2 done. I'm now officially Dante level 1 certified as well as RCSG selector certified, which probably means nothing to anybody listening, but those are both kind of radio broadcast industry certifications. Got those finally under my belt. Uh, but yeah, I just about died last week because I also had to prep and run a D&D game for Saturday. But Sunday, I got to have a nice day of rest. Got to catch up on some Clone Wars, and me and the apartment folks, we were all building up to this day for quite some time, where we wanted to watch through all of Clone Wars and then finish it by doing a double feature of the Siege of Mandalore arc and Revenge of the Sith, which kind of happened side by side. And
Mhm.
it was great. We made some Star Wars themed food. We had these Clone Trooper cupcakes, which were topped with these kind of like jumbo marshmallows, and we painted Clone Trooper masks on them. They're very
They look
cute.
so cute.
I didn't want to eat them; they were so cute, but they were also delicious. Um, we had some blue milk. We just mixed up milk, vanilla ice cream, and blueberry Hawaiian punch powder mix,
Oh,
which is like you wouldn't expect it, but it
interesting.
really works.
Huh.
It was delicious, and we ordered a bunch of um, buffalo wings. So we call them like Y wings, X wings, whatever. Um, yeah, it was fun. It was a nice night and a nice end to the week. Um,
Nice.
so yeah, that's what I've been up to. And Todd wrote in because he couldn't be here tonight. He's getting nerdy, and he ordered an Elgato HD 60s Plus and a green screen for streaming. Um,
Ooh.
so that'll be fun. He's looking forward to streaming some more with Trent. He's excited for that. Debuted the kids' Jawa costumes at his sister's birthday party last week, which was fun. Finished Star Wars: The High Republic Test of Courage by Justina Ireland. It's a junior novel, but still a solid book. He just started to listen to Victory's Price by Alexander Freed. It's the third book from the Alphabet Squadron trilogy, Speak of the Devil. Todd was super disappointed in the second book, and hopefully this one will pick up.
Oh, no.
Also did a podcast with Armand on his Syndicate podcast, and they talked about The Crow. So stay tuned for his season 2 soon. And he misses us. Well, we miss you too, Todd.
I miss you too, Todd.
Not the same without you. All right. So thank you, everybody, for listening to another episode of WSTR, Galactic Public Access. You can check us out on social media at WSTR Media. We want to hear from you, so please comment, tweet, rate us on Apple Podcast. Email us at mailbox@wstrmedia.com. Leave us a voicemail at 630-557-WSTR. That's 630-557-9787. Leave us a voicemail. We'll play it on an upcoming podcast. And you can catch our entire back catalog of episodes at podcast.wstrmedia.com. We got our merch store, store.wstrmedia.com. We also got our Patreon, patreon.com/WSTRmedia. And we are part of the Red 5 network, and it is a great family of Star Wars podcasts. Check out at Red 5 Network and our website, www.red5network.com, for all the updates and shenanigans. And thank you, everybody in the YouTube chat, for hanging out with us. We live stream every Monday night, mostly, at 9 p.m. Central Standard Time. So please check us out on YouTube and like, comment, subscribe so you don't miss a single stream. We're on the road to 3,500 Twitter followers, that is. So please help us to get there. We've got more prizes yet to give away. Next week, episode 213. It's going to be a fun time. We've got stunt actor and friend of the show, Lauren Mary Kim. She's coming back to talk about her work on Mandalorian Season 2 and much, much more. All right, Carla, there's only one way to end this. Now this is podcasting.